Hello ladies and gentlemen, Elrohir is one of the most underestimated commanders right now in my opinion. This video is going to be an overview of Elrohir. I plan on testing him a whole bunch this season, and later on down the line I'll release a full guide on the commander. But before we get into the interview, we're going to be doing a giveaway courtesy of Kodashop of 4 season passes to random people who comment on this video. So let me know what you think about Elrohir down in the comment section below. And this video is sponsored by Codashop. Check out the link in the description below. Allow me to introduce you to Kodashop, a platform that will allow you to top up your accounts in most or all of your favorite games. Kodashop partners directly with some of the largest publishers in the business to allow for a quick, safe, and seamless purchase experience when buying in-game items or currencies. Kodashop's partnerships allow them to immediately send your purchases to your account, just like if you're using the Google or Apple stores. They even support sending gifts directly to your friends. Using Kodashop is quick and easy. First, go to Kodashop.com or use my affiliate link in the description of this video. Next, select the game that you wish to make a purchase for. Fill out the required account information, select your top-up, choose your payment method, and enter an email address where you'd like to receive a receipt. And you're done! Topping up your accounts has never been easier, and thank you to Kodashop for sponsoring this video. Welcome back, everyone. Let's get things started by talking about what I believe will ultimately be the best Elrohir build. I think this build will work very, very well in the early game for taking tiles, potentially even bosses, although probably not as good against bosses as somebody like Arwen or Gandalf the Grey. But I started off by maxing out War Chant. This is going to be a massive 30% damage increase, and it's going to go down by a quarter for the first 4 rounds of combat. So it's a very considerable overall damage increase, letting you gain an early advantage in those beginning rounds of combat. Tied into War Chant, I maxed out the healing because healing tends to be quite good for tiles. Then I moved over to Half-Elven. This is because I'm planning on running 2 Elven units and 1 Manish unit, just like with my Arwen build. Overall, I think Elrohir and Arwen are actually pretty similar commanders. And next to Half-Elven, we have Boon, which is, in my opinion, quite an underrated skill. A 20% across-the-board damage increase to physical damage, which for good factions, I mean, you're only doing physical damage anyway. But it doesn't require a specific type of unit, and it doesn't require a specific race of unit. Those bonuses tend to be only 21%, so this is going to affect your whole army no matter what, with either a 20% damage increase, or your army will take 20% less physical damage, which is extremely good because most damage reduction skills are only 14% reduction at 7 points. So whichever side of Boon you get, it's going to be quite nice. And from there, I think the rest of the points are going to go into loyal followers. And this is where you do have somewhat of a choice. And this is where I'm going to be doing some experimentation. I may try and run Elrohir as a double ranged unit commander, specifically because as Arnor, I have Rangers of the North. And so they will be able to tank for the very squishy Sentinels that I would also like to run. Or if you're fighting a bunch of evil factions, I do think that Controlled Madness is pretty solid. It's not as good as being Madness immune, but it does give you the option to run an anti-stun helm, and then you can take this skill to really mitigate the impact that Madness has on your army. And I do believe in theory that Madness is going to be one of Elrohir's biggest weaknesses if this skill is not taken, because if you run into something like Sauron and you spend the entire duration of your War Chant killing yourself, well, that's really, really not good. Loyal Followers itself is just another damage buff. At first, I thought that this skill was not particularly good, but the more I did the math, it's not quite as good as things like Ring Wraith, which would be a 30% damage buff to burn, poison, and all those different damage types. However, this ends up, even if you're only running 2 types of units, men and elf, it still ends up being like a 24% damage buff to those units. And that's pretty nice because it is not as restrictive as something like Ring Wraith. You can run melee men, you can run ranged men, you can run melee elves, you can run ranged elves, you can even throw in guardians if you want and get even more damage. It goes up to like 32 or 34%. I don't remember the exact math right now, but if you're running one man, one elf, and one dwarf, it's actually one of the best damage boosts in the game. Moving on, let's go ahead and talk about gear. Currently, Elrohir is mainly just sweeping mobs to level up, so this is kind of just throwaway gear. I also need to take him to Respect 5 before I really utilize him in PvP. I do think that a couple of these items are very solid for him, though. We have the Sustain Pipe is just going to add even more to his healing. I am running an Anti-Madness Helm currently because I don't have any points in Controlled Madness. If and when I do get points in Controlled Madness, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to an Anti-Stun Helmet and refine that up. The Scale Mail I do think is very solid for him. However, I would much prefer one like Arwen has with Melee Vigor. This is because I will most likely be running 2 melee units and 1 ranged unit on Elrohir. Like I said a few minutes ago, since I'm Arnor, I might actually run double ranged unit, in which case I would want to run something like a Hunter's Skin with ranged Vigor. But I think I'm going to get a lot of mileage out of double melee, at least in the early game. Since we're fighting Lothlorien, I'm going to be wanting to run something like Herald Dunedain Sharpshooter or Herald Dunedain Sentinel. In which case, if this had melee vigor, it would be much better. And I just have my my extra cutlass lying around. I haven't wanted to get rid of this thing because a melee might cutlass is very useful to have around if I ever want to go back to playing as cavalry, or I mean in this case as Elrohir, like I was just talking about, I might end up running something like, double or triple. Potentially I could even like Guard of the Tower, Dunedain Herald. Although running 3 melee units with Heralds is a bit awkward because then they're not going to get as many counterattacks off. So as far as army compositions go, even though we just talked about a couple of them, currently I am running Rangers with Guards of the Tower and Cavalry Archers. This is just because I have a bunch of extra of these lying around and I'm sweeping mobs with Elrohir currently. In general, I do believe that as Arnor, I'm going to run something like Guard of the Tower or Guardian as a melee unit. And then I'm going to run Rangers of the North with Sentinels so that my Rangers can protect those very, very squishy Sentinels. Alternatively, like I was just talking about a second ago, I think that something like Guard of the Tower plus Dunedain plus Sentinel could also work as well. Dunedain being particularly stellar against ranged units, obviously, but I do think that overall they are one of the most underestimated units in the game right now. If we take a look at their stats real quick, go ahead, actually I have them in my barracks. If we go ahead and get this pulled up, these guys are super quick and they do a pretty considerable amount of damage. And they have bonuses against enemy ranged units, a massive 30% damage bonus at max level, and they will always attack ranged targets, and they have a massive 30% damage reduction against ranged units. That's a 60% damage swing in your favor against ranged units when you are running Dunedain. Additionally, because Elrohir and Arwen, and I guess Elrond as well, because these commanders have the Half-Elven title, that really helps shore up what is normally their weakness, which is their defense. 36 HP actually is pretty solid for a melee unit. 44 defense is their massive weakness, but if you're getting 20 or 30% extra defense just from the title, as well as any additional boosts from your equipment, suddenly these guys come out to almost as much defense as Guards of the Tower can have, and that's pretty huge because these guys already deal plenty of damage. If you can keep them alive, they're just going to kill everything for you. So those are my initial thoughts on Elrohir. As I said at the beginning of the video, I will be releasing a full commander guide once I have some good reports with him and kind of perfect the army composition, equipment setup, and skill build. So hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll catch you in the next one. Phoenix out.